Hi guys, and welcome back to Cooking with Cody. I am Cody, and on today's episode we're going to be going over the 4 starter knives that you need in your kitchen in addition to what each of them are used for. I'm going to be covering these knives in order of importance, so if you're new to cooking or you're just trying to up your game in the kitchen, then this episode should help you decide what knives you truly need to get started or what knives you should buy first if you're on a budget. At the end of this video, as a bonus, I'll also be going over some of the other common knives in the kitchen so that you can become a more knowledgeable chef and be able to recognize the different knives and their uses. So if you guys are ready, let's get started.
Okay, so the first and most important knife you'll need in the kitchen is the chef's knife. A chef's knife is a Western style knife which has a blade typically between 6 and 14 inches long and 1.5 inches wide, with a curve that becomes more pronounced near the tip of the knife. The chef's knife is the main knife you will use in the kitchen and can handle 85% of all of the cutting you will need to do. This is the knife you would use for all of your heavy-duty chopping, mincing, dicing, or slicing for most meats or vegetables, and can also be substituted for carving or breaking down large cuts of meat if needed. Of all of the knives to get, this would be the most important, as it is the most versatile and will be the most used in the kitchen. So the second most important knife in the kitchen is the paring knife. The paring knife has a short blade, typically between 2.5 and 4.5 inches long, and an edge that looks like a smaller, plainer version of a chef's knife. Its simple, sharp blade is great for intricate work like peeling fruits or vegetables, deveining shrimp, or creating garnishes, and can also be used for coring your produce or making specialty cuts where you need more control over the blade. This will be the second most used knife in your kitchen and should be the next knife you invest in after the chef's knife. Whenever I need a smaller knife that grants me more control, the paring knife is my option of choice. Alright, so now that we have the chef's knife and paring knife out of the way, the next most important knife would be the boning knife. A boning knife, not to be confused with the even more flexible fillet knife used for similar purposes but typically more so with fish, is thin and flexible with a curved blade that typically measures between 5 and 7 inches long, and it is designed to get into small spaces to detach meat from the bone. There are a few different variations to choose from with boning knives, from firmer blades which are better for tougher cuts like beef, or more flexible blades which are better suited for more tender cuts like chicken. This is the knife to reach for when you need to do any kind of butchering or removing bone from raw meats. It can also be used for carving, however I personally save this knife for raw meats only to avoid possible cross-contamination. This is a knife that can take your cooking to the next level as you begin to save more money by butchering your own meats and will now have the leftover bones to create savory stocks or stews. Alright, so the fourth and final most important knife to have in your kitchen is the serrated knife, or the bread knife. A bread knife is a long knife with serrated edges which also comes in a shorter version called the serrated utility knife. The grooves in the knife allow it to slice cleanly through breads or soft foods with a hard skin without crushing them. Bread knives have a classic knife handle, or they might have an offset handle to keep your knuckles from knocking onto the counter or the food while using them. As just mentioned, this knife is typically used for the carving and slicing of softer items that you would otherwise crush under a straight-bladed knife. The serrated edges allow you to cut through the item cleanly without having to apply a lot of pressure downward, making it great for cutting breads, tomatoes, cakes, or citrus fruits, and is a must for keeping your softer items in their original shape while slicing.
Okay guys, so those are the only 4 essential knives that you really need to get started cooking. And if you just pick up those 4 knives, I promise you'll be able to handle 95% of everything you would need to cut in the kitchen. I know, surprising, right? But what about all the other knives, you may ask? Well, that's a great question. So for those of you that already have the 4 essential knives, but also have a drawer full of others, I'll now be covering some of the other common knives in the kitchen.
Alright guys, so there are a ton of different knives out there, but these are some of the more common knives you might see, and are honestly all of the knives I have ever needed in my kitchen. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these since we could make a whole new video explaining them, but here's a quick overview. So first we have a sharpening steel or honing steel, which actually doesn't sharpen your knives at all. The honing steel instead realigns the fragmented teeth of the knife, allowing it to cut more smoothly through items. This should be used on any of your straight edge knives directly before you start cutting to improve the life of the knife and ensure smooth and consistent cuts. Next we have the 4 essential knives, first being the chef's knife, then the paring knife, then the serrated or the bread knife, and then lastly the boning knife as covered in the video. After this we have the filleting knife or fillet knife, which was briefly mentioned earlier. This knife has a very flexible blade and is typically used for skinning fish or deboning soft meats. The next knife is known as a carving knife and is used for carving large cuts of meat such as ham or turkey and is particularly useful during the holiday season. From here we have the utility knife, which is a great midway knife between the chef's knife and paring knife, which I would typically use for cutting medium-sized fruits or vegetables. After this is the tournée or bird's beak knife, which is a type of paring knife used for decorative cuts or the peeling of fruits and vegetables. And lastly is the steak knife, which should be reserved for your dining room table.
Okay, so now that you know your knives better and which ones are the most important of the set, you may want to go out and pick up the ones that you are missing. But just wait, because I have some more helpful information that will help you with your decision. Before you go out and buy any of these knives, realize that the price and the quality of the knives can vary widely depending on the brand and the type of knife that you select. And while I think investing in a good set of quality knives can serve you long into the future, realize at the start the most important thing is to just pick up something that is within your budget range, is comfortable for you to use, and is functional. Don't worry about finding the most expensive knife to start or the coolest looking, although I wouldn't go super cheap here either, as a better quality knife will serve you long into the future.
So when selecting the size and style of knife, the most important thing to look for is that you can hold it comfortably in your hand and that the knife is well balanced for easy use. You also want to choose a knife that is well built, sturdy, and has some weight to it so you know that it will hold up to use in the kitchen. Choose knives that are made from all one piece with a full tang rather than knives that do not have this, and these will be the most durable and will have a better control in your hand. I would also recommend a stainless steel knife for beginners, as these knives will stay sharp for a long time and will not corrode or stain with use. If you're in the market for new knives, I've listed a number of popular options down below from various price ranges to help you with this decision.
Alright guys, I hope this video helps you with your cooking and helps improve your skills in the kitchen. Remember that selecting the right tool for the job can make a world of difference, so I hope that with this new info, you now know what knife to reach for when preparing your next tasty dish. If you like this video, please hit the like button and leave me a comment down below. And if you want to help support me and the channel, then please be sure to hit subscribe and hit the notification bell to be notified of all my future content. Thanks again for watching, and until next time.